men between the ages of 18 and 29 are basically sexless. And the percentage has gone up to like, I think it was 28 or 30%. I think it's maybe even higher than that right now, meaning like they're still virgins, meaning like they're not even, they're not going to reproduce. And when I talk about the issue of like incels or vol cells or whatever cells we're whatever cutesy word we're using right now, you have to look at it in terms of reproductive success or failure. Because when a man doesn't reproduce, he might as well be dead. So, I mean, from an evolutionary perspective, it's maybe not exactly like that, but I'm not saying, hey, go kill yourself. I'm just saying like that's from a hindbrain perspective for men. If they're not reproducing, they might as well be going extinct. So you have to take that into consideration, but also what is responsible for that uptick in celibacy? So a lot of people want to say, well, it's the ease with which we can get online streaming free 4K pornography online, and that's what's keeping guys like from going into the clubs and actually doing something with themselves. Because why bother going out and risking rejection and actually building yourself up to be anything more if there's no incentive or there's no reward for actually having sex? Because prior to the sexual revolution, that compromise, I mean, at least ideally, was that a guy had to get married in order to get to sex, and a woman had to get married in order to get to security or long-term security. Now we don't have those things anymore because women can provide for themselves either through the state or through their own, their careerism, going to school, getting their money together, being a boss babe kind of thing. So they can sort of cover what we call the beta buck side of hypergamy, which is alpha seed and beta need, right? So you've got women who are now self-sufficient. They're strong, independent women, but they're independent of men. So they don't need men, but they want men. And the men that they don't want are the 18 to 29-year-old guys from 2008 to 2018. And we can clearly see that that's the way, I mean, statistically speaking, that's the direction that we're going. Pornography, as I've said in the past, is a sedation for guys. It keeps you satisfied. The oxytocin keeps coming in. There's a biological aspect that goes along with that. There are a lot of ways that we sedate the young men of today, and not just in the United States, but in other first world countries. So if you look at pornography, if you look at immersive video games, if you look at the fact that we legalized marijuana not too long ago, if you look at the uptick in
what about the metaverse rollout?
The metaverse, that's coming.
Reality. I mean, that's the next step.
Courtesy of a guy who has no business talking about reproduction. Mark Zuckerberg is probably there's something wrong with that guy. But so that's a sedation. You look at these sedations like was it prescription drug, like opioid abuse, alcoholism, pornography, marijuana, whatever else it is. And it doesn't eliminate guys' want for purpose. You can listen to somebody like Dr. Jordan Peterson or even myself when we talk about like the Lost Boys generation. That generation, which is now 2 generations, is the product of really 30 or 40 years leading up to where we're at right now, where we've disincentivized men being men. We don't even know what a man is right now. We don't even know what a woman is right now. We would talk about this transgender stuff that's just a product of this impetus that's been really going on since I think probably the early 70s up to where we're at right now. So if you look at how we sedate men, it's not just sedating you from actually succeeding or becoming a like quote unquote alpha male, right? It's not just preventing you from that. It's also removing you from the sexual marketplace. It's removing you from you being able to solve your reproductive problem. And from an overall, if we're going to look at the forest for the trees from a Malthusian perspective, having all of that is most definitely a way to control population. And what population is it controlling? The least motivated, the most frustrated, the most angst-ridden guys. That's one. Somebody told me this, that like during the Arab Spring, one of the reasons why the Arab Spring took off is because there was such a high concentration of young men between 18 and 29 who you couldn't have sex in those cultures unless you got married. They had no prospect. They were all unemployed, and they had no prospects for marriage. They had no prospects for sex, and as a result, they have no prospects for reproduction. So when you take that away from them, yeah, they're going to riot. Yeah, they're going to go overthrow the government because they have nothing left to lose at that
especially
point.
when they can't afford food, Rollo. And that's the exact same place that we're going now in the United States, where we've got this generation of males who can't get a date, let's say. And you're going to see food prices, according to Biden himself, we're going to see food shortages, therefore food prices increasing, and see an Arab type spring here in the United States. I mean, it's all connected. And if you think about these,
why do you think Antifa is a thing? Do you think they got jobs?
Yeah, it's all civil unrest on both sides of the aisle. But you look at these narratives that we're seeing pushed by the mainstream media, by most politicians, and then by most all of the global elite. And there are narratives that maybe it's not their purpose, but the net result is still the same. And that's that women make decisions which lower the birth rate. And again, I'm not going to say whether that's bad or good. I'm just going to say there's trade-offs there. And men are making decisions which put them into a category where there's no way that they're going to be attractive to a female, especially a female that's going to exceed them in education, that's going to exceed them in their ability to make money, and exceed them in their ability to make decisions.
Well, there's two. You got to remember that there's two sides of like the hypergamous equation. Like I was saying before, like the beta buck side. Well, when women are looking for long-term security, they need long-term security from a life perspective a whole lot longer than they do, or they have their most sort of sexually selective years where they can consolidate on that. So from that perspective, if he says, if you live in a society that has, from the time you were 5 years old through Disney, Pixar, popular media, music, whatever, like, you go girl kind of media, if you have been taught from a very early age that you can't trust men, they are ridiculous, they are incompetent, or they're borderline abusers. That's pretty much the narrative for masculinity in, Western societies right now, that you cannot trust men. So you have to do it yourself.